This is Learn from Others, where we interview a cross-section of successful individuals so you can learn from their experiences, achievements, and even their mistakes. We ask 4 questions that will educate and inspire. Greg Stanley will be your guide as we join our guest on a journey from adolescent daydreaming to success in today's world. Join us on this adventure as we learn from others together.
Welcome to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest, EricTheCarGuy. Eric, how are things going?
Things are going great. How are you?
Great. Thank you for joining us today. Well, before we find out what you're doing today, let's start at the very beginning. And can you tell us, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, a lot of different things. I think one of the things that I wanted to be was a doctor, in particular a doctor that delivered babies, because I felt like, they were always giving people good news as opposed to the doctors that were giving people bad news on TV. That was the extent of my knowledge about what doctors did. But yeah, I thought I wanted to be a doctor.
Wow, that's a really cool thing to do and a great way to think about it. I never thought about it that way. Well, what was your first job, like as a little kid, like working around the house, mowing lawns?
Well, that's hard to say, really, because my life growing up, my parents are divorced. I spent some time with grandparents, and they were from the greatest generation, so work was just what you did.
Right.
You didn't sit around the house doing stupid stuff, or if, you were in the house and you were being annoying, you were sent outside to do something else. So, yeah, as far as, the first job that I had, I was bagging groceries at a grocery store and taking them out and putting them in people's cars.
Okay. That was like your first one you got actual paycheck for, know? Okay.
Yeah.
And what grocery chain was that, if I may ask? Because I'm involved in the grocery channel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's my day job.
Sure, fine.
Sure, fine. Are they still in business?
I don't think so. It was a while ago, man. The store is not even there anymore. The building is there, but it's no longer the grocery store that it once was that I worked at many, many years ago.
Right. Well, did you have a favorite subject or hobby in school?
Actually, I was thinking about becoming an artist. So,
wow.
I had independent studies in art and those kinds of things. I actually won some regional art competitions, that kind of thing.
Actually, I did see that on your website. We did a really cool big mural that's still up somewhere, correct?
That was my independent study, and the majority of that work got done in the last 3 months because I realized that I was going to be leaving soon. In fact, the art teacher sort of lit a fire under me by saying that, I can get somebody else to finish it. And I said, nope. So I got off my keister and got to work and posted that out in the last 3 months. Interesting story about that mural, though. The last brushstroke that I put onto it, the principal came on the intercom and said everybody needed to report to the football field outside. Well, apparently somebody was robbing a local bank and said that they planted a bomb in the school and they were going to blow it up if they didn't let them get away. So I found that kind of interesting that I finished one of my first major pieces of art and then it was being threatened to blow up.
Wow. Interesting memory, if nothing else.
It was all BS, and the school's still there, so is the mural.
Oh, that's great. Now, that's great that your mural's still there after so many years of doing it and putting in so much hard work. So that has to be pretty satisfying.
It is. It's kind of cool. In fact, my son went to school there, and it was still there while he was going to school, and possibly my grandson as well.
Wow, that is really cool. That's a very interesting beginning. You wanted to maybe be a doctor delivering babies. You had a strong desire for art. Well, tell us what you do today.
I produce videos for YouTube for the most part.
And you've just recently surpassed the 1 million subscriber mark, correct? You're up to what, like 1.2?
Yeah, I think so. It's a little weird. I was really happy when I hit 100,000. To me, that was like I made it.
Right.
And ever since then, it's felt like gravy. So I appreciate each and every subscription, and I want to thank everybody that's actually bothered to hit the subscribe button and watch the videos.
Yeah, that's a really tough thing to be in. Well, if you could, walk us through how you went from, that mural that you made to where you are today, like kind of like your career journey that you ended up being one of the biggest YouTubers out there.
Well, I'll give you the highlights. Originally, I started out in art school. I actually went to college for a Bachelor of Fine Arts, but quickly realized that probably the best I could do is be an art teacher or do greeting cards, neither of which I had any interest in. So I enrolled at the Art Institute of Pittsburgh. I was in Buffalo at the time, and I moved down to Pittsburgh to go to the Art Institute. And there I studied industrial design, special effects, makeup, that kind of thing, because to me it seemed infinitely more interesting to be doing stuff for science fiction and scary movies than it was to try and do greeting cards or be an art teacher.
Right.
That was the early 90s, and that was the death of really practical effects in a sense, because CGI came along and pretty much changed the game. So in a way, I'm kind of glad I dodged that bullet. I finished the year and was at the top of my class, but I couldn't finish school because I ran out of money. I was sort of set adrift for a bit because I was too young to get student loans on my own, and my parents were pretty much done financing things. And I don't know if I mentioned, but in the interim there, I had a son. I didn't. Well, yeah, I participated.
You helped produce a son, correct?
Yeah. So, but his mom and I didn't stay together, and moving to Pittsburgh obviously didn't help things either. So basically, I found myself adrift, needing a career, not just another job. So I just opened up the phone book and found the local auto repair school or automotive technician school and enrolled in their 18-month program. I was kind of broke at the time. In fact, my application fee was rolled up change because that's all I had.
Wow.
And I worked really hard and graduated top of my class, which I really like saying that, but the reality of it is there were probably about 14 people in my graduating class.
Right.
So, but it did land me a job actually before I finished school at an independent shop, which, I did pretty well in. And then I ended up moving to Cincinnati, got a job at a dealership there and worked there for a while, but I won't get into the story of how things ended there, but it was a strange set of circumstances that just sort of pulled a rug out from under me. During that time, working at the dealership, I was sort of becoming a little disillusioned with being a mechanic, so I started trying to get back into the artistic things. A friend of mine took me to the computer store, and they had a computer-running iMovie. So I sat down and started playing with that and rediscovered my love for art at that point because, to me, you not only were in control of the image, but you were in control of the sound and time. So I fell in love with video editing literally in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I taught myself how to do it a little more efficiently and started my own video production company and was doing weddings, events, and some corporate work on the side in addition to working as a mechanic. So after losing my job as a mechanic, I said, I want to make a go of it as a video producer as opposed to working in the mechanical field anymore. Unfortunately, that was 2008 and not necessarily the best time to start a video business because
right.
nobody had any money. So I'm watching YouTube one day, and there was a channel some people might remember called David's Farm years ago. He didn't really do repair videos. He just did videos around his farm and that had things involving cars and mechanical things. Well, one video he's bragging about the $7,000 check that he received from YouTube for a month's worth of income, and I said, you know what? I don't really see anybody out there right now doing step-by-step how-to auto repair videos, and I have all the equipment and the know-how how to do both. So why don't I start the auto repair channel and focus on step-by-step auto repair videos? And that was January of 2009, and I'm here now talking to you.
Yeah, and it seems such an amazing opportunity for you because you saw what was like that spark of inspiration with his YouTube channel. And what's great about your channel is that you're providing value to others. It's not just, kids playing video game or something. You're actually teaching people to fix their cars. And I'm sure there's even some automotive shops that are referencing your videos for like the newbies or something. I don't know, but it's such a value added that anybody could use. I think that's one of the reasons you've been so successful is just you've been able to really hit that nerve that really a lot of folks can see as a great resource to use every day.
To that point, we all do that now. I mean, one of the first things we do if we get stuck is do a quick Google search, and if there's a video that comes up, it's the first thing we look at. And I think it's just how it's done these days. It's not just, the how-to DIYers out in the world. It's also some of us technicians, especially those of us who've been out of the day-to-day workings of it for a while. We look to, get freshened up on some of the latest things or newer problems that we've never run into before.
Right. Now, walk us through like your typical week, because I imagine you're filming all the time. You're always working on stuff. There's got to be a diverse amount of stuff you're working on at any one time.
Well, if there's a week where I'm actually home, which is sprinkled around, sometimes I travel a bit to, different events. In fact, next week I'll be in Indianapolis for PRI. Typical week, Mondays and Fridays are my office days. That's usually where I try to get caught up on email and usually end up writing blogs or some kind of office work that happens on those days. And then Tuesdays through Thursdays I try to spend at the shop in production, usually shooting videos. Then Saturdays I do my edits. And Sundays I try to take the day off so that I don't have to do much, but I usually end up working in the morning, and I call that a day off. And then whole thing over again.
Right. And for the record, I love your Fairlane or Fairmont.
Yes, I love that car.
That speaks to me because I think we're approximately the same age, and I remember those running around and to hear one fire up the way that one does. And I saw your exhaust cutout video recently. I'm like, I can't wait to see that thing running around town. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been taking it around to different car shows. I started doing that last year, and it always attracts a crowd. It's amazing, all the haters that didn't really like the project, which, everybody's entitled to an opinion.
Right.
But people that actually see it in person are impressed, and they really like the car. Every car show I've gone to, it's drawn a crowd. It's really cool. And it's not just because it's my car. It's just because the car people like it.
Well, you never see that. You never see a Fairmont to begin with, and much less one that's rotted up like yours is. So that's really cool. And I love the fact it's like beige. It's not like Hot Rod Red, so it's really cool.
I'm not the first person to make the connection that Fairmonts are Fox bodies and all Mustang parts will bolt onto them. I'm not the first person to do that by any stretch, but I did it the way I wanted to do it, and it seems to resonate with people.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, before we move on to our next question, let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors. Do you enjoy your job and find it fulfilling? Or do you spend more time wondering what if instead of what's next? If so, contact Career Spa. Career Spa has extensive programs and curriculum and understands the challenges faced by individuals in transition. They can teach these success practices to be mastered for an effective job search. Answer that what if question by contacting Career Spa and asking their experts, what's next? Contact Career Spa at careerspa.net. Talent acquisition is key to building a successful organization. Talent Connections is a professional services firm that specializes in recruiting, including executive search, contract recruiting, talent acquisition consulting, and recruitment process outsourcing. Whether you are an individual or a Fortune 100 company, Talent Connections can connect you with success. Contact them at talentconnections.net. Well, welcome back. As a reminder, you can check out all previous episodes at learnfromothers.org. And if you are an educator or a student, you can search for podcasts by career cluster, and additional resources are under the resource tab. To check out cool car pictures and videos, just hit that tab labeled car stuff. So, Eric, we just learned what you wanted to be when you grew up and what you actually do today, which is a very successful YouTuber. If you could do it all over again, what would you do differently?
I would probably spend more time looking at the analytics and looking at the numbers. Starting out as a mechanic, I was more concerned about working on the details and hoping the rest of it would sort itself out. And as a result, I lost touch of the big picture for a while. So that kind of hurt me a little bit. But I think I would pay more attention to newer social networks that were up and coming at the time. Like I started before Instagram and Twitter starting to become a thing. So I've been trying to manage the social media landscape, which I come from a time which that really wasn't a thing, and I do struggle with that today, if I'm honest. So
talking about analytics, you mean at least in the beginning, like your YouTube analytics, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and speaking of which, if you could touch on YouTube a little bit, as I know they've recently gone through some changes, and it seemed like, from what I was hearing, the folks that were established were kind of hurt a little bit as they were trying to make room for some new folks. Is that true?
Well, since the beginning, just having worked in business in the past, especially, I mentioned that video production company that I wasn't able to get off the ground. I learned early on to diversify, especially with the brand of EricTheCarGuy.
Yep.
So, I'd never wanted to rely on YouTube being my sole source of income. So I split things up long ago, and very happy that I did. The thing is these days YouTube is so large that it's basically run by a machine.
Mm-hmm.
You're working against an algorithm. And one thing that I find frustrating is that a lot of my viewers aren't even aware that I've been posting videos or have been posting videos for a while because they're not being notified. It used to be when you subscribe to a YouTube channel, you'd get in your feed the things that you were subscribed to every time they posted a video. But because of, numerous reasons, I would say probably the genesis of which started with ad blockers, YouTube has changed things considerably, and as a result, I don't want to say performance-based, but you have to work the algorithm.
Right.
And that's what I was speaking to a little bit ago as far as looking more at the analytics and trying to figure those things out and working towards that. So I'm trying to get into a place where I can work the algorithm a little bit better so that my efforts in video production aren't wasted by the fact that nobody's getting a chance to actually see them.
Yeah, that's what I kind of loved about one of your recent posts is you were kind of calling out people, which I thought was great. Be sure you watch, be sure you subscribe, be sure you visit here, be sure you go there. So I thought that was great, the way you interact with your audience. Is there a particular type of video you do that you find really spikes it? Like whether it's a car brand, I know like Porsche always spikes stuff, or if it's hey, here's how an engine works, or is it more of a here's how you fix X? Is there anything specific that pops?
Yeah, there is, and it's disturbing to me because it doesn't fit in line with what I like to do. And it's anything that's controversial or makes a declarative statement. It's something that actually involves repair information, because to be honest, the people that are looking for the repair information, such as we mentioned early on in the conversation, they're looking for a specific answer to a specific problem, and that's where a lot of my videos will apply. Unless you're really into watching my videos, you're not watching my videos every week. You're doing a search on something, and I just happen to make a video on it that helps you. The videos that do well in the automotive space, or just in general these days, seem to be videos that are controversial, like saying 5 things you shouldn't do to your automatic transmission, or 10 things to do when you get up in the morning to your car.
Right.
Stuff like is what resonates, because it reaches a wider audience than just that specific person looking to solve a specific problem.
Right. Yeah, because I had an old Mustang, and I Googled, how do I fix the power steering pump? So that's very specific. So I see what you're saying.
That's what you'll get. But as far as if you're just looking for infotainment and you're into auto repair, well, there's channels out there catering to that very thing right now that are doing pretty well as a result.
Right. Well, let's assume someone wants to do what you do, which I know there's a bazillion people who would love to be YouTubers or YouTube stars, or however you want to say it. What advice would you give them? Which should be pretty interesting, because you mentioned the diversification piece of it. But if someone wanted to succeed, let's just say on social media in some way, what advice would you give them?
Keep your day job.
I'm hearing that more and more. Wow. Yeah. Now, why would you say that?
I'd say that because, like I said, it's not people that are running YouTube anymore. It's an algorithm. So if your stuff never gets seen and you can't get off the ground, if I started doing what I'm doing right now today and I didn't start 10 years ago, I wouldn't be able to make it.
Right.
I'd have probably a modest channel with modest success, and I'd be cool with that. But yeah, if you're trying to do what I did, you needed to start 10 years ago,
right,
when YouTube was young to get to this place. Other than that, you might get a few viral videos, but really, YouTube does offer some advice to creators, content creators. They have a channel, they have blogs, things that they put out to try to help their creators. Some of that stuff I'm sure works. I mean, they're inside the machine, so they're able to tell you how what switches to flip to get your videos out there. But it's extremely difficult, and it involves more than just YouTube.
Right.
I mean, you've got to have a total social media package to help drive all that stuff. And I was going to say earlier, self-promotion is not one of my strong suits, so that's one of the reasons why I think I'm suffering a little bit these days.
Right. No, that's great advice. You're the first person that says keep your day job as far as if I want to do what you do, which is great. I mean, it's the real-world advice that people really need to listen up. This isn't as easy as people may think it is, so I love that advice.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't try.
Right.
What I'm saying is have a fallback.
Yep.
Like, only try and try to put your stamp on it, and who knows, you might just make it big. I don't want to discourage you from that, but I do want you to understand, and I'm speaking to you, the listener, I do want you to understand that it's a much more difficult game than you think, and it's also a lot more work than you think. If you think that all you're going to do is just make a video and $1 million, a week, that's not going to happen. It's a constant thing. It's a machine that you have to feed constantly. It never quits.
Right. Yep. No, real world perspective is awesome. So, well, are there any current projects you're working on that you would like to share?
I am about to start work on my dad's, the truck that my dad gave me last year. That was a 1990 C1500 Chevrolet pickup truck. It's a sport. Everybody thinks it's the 454 SS. It's not. It's its little brother that had the 350 and the manual transmission in it. But it's a very pretty truck, and the idea is to, put a little performance into it. And if possible, I'd love to have it done before next year's Power Tour so that I can give it back to my dad so that he could drive it on the Power Tour and I can drive my Ford, and we could drive the Power Tour together.
Is there any peek under the tent as far as plans? What, you're going to switch out, do an engine swap? You're going to keep it stock? You're going to make it totally mod?
No, it's getting an engine swap, and I'm going to go with an automatic transmission. I'm not going to talk about the engine yet because that's like the biggest things. However, if you're a premium member of my website, you know what's going on.
I like that. Yeah.
Also, I do plan to do a video of the overview of what I plan to do with the truck, but I do want to make it performance-based and not so much a work truck.
Right. Okay. Well, cool. Well, as with most journeys, success largely depends on reliable transportation. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a huge car enthusiast. So if you would, tell us, what was your first car?
1972 Galaxy 500.
No, that's a very nice first car. That's a big car.
It's a big car, but I think it has one of the coolest names for a car ever. I mean, between Galaxy 500 and Interceptor is another car name that I really like. But yeah, I'd say it had the coolest name. It wasn't necessarily the coolest car, but it was my first car. It was mine, and I did love it very much. But it was my dad's old winter car, so it was rusty and crusty. In fact, on my maiden voyage out of the driveway, the brake line went, and I peed brake fluid all the way down the driveway.
Now, what was in that? A 429, a 460? What was in that, big boy?
No, it was actually a 351 Windsor.
Oh, they still had the 351. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That was like 373 or so.
In fact, I'm told they never put the 460s in those, even in the police interceptors. And I found this out when I went to try to find engine mounts for one. I had to get them out of a 71 Lincoln instead.
Huh. Okay. Wow, that's interesting.
That's what I said. I couldn't believe that either, but I couldn't find engine shackles to go into a 72 Galaxy that I bought later in life.
Right.
To get a 460 that I took out of a 69 Thunderbird.
Oh, yeah. Well, what is your dream car?
1979 Ford Fairmont that I built myself.
Oh, that's awesome. So you actually have your dream car. Well, cool.
Well, a sleeper in general. It's something that, doesn't look like it has much, but has everything the way I want it. There's a little bit of Millennium Falcon in that car, too, if you look close.
I'll have to take a closer look. That's awesome. Tying it into a great movie. Awesome. Well, one great perk to some jobs is a company car. So if I had all the money in the world, I'd love to buy a really cool company car. Now, I sent you the picture, and you might be like, what is this all about? So here's my mindset, and you're a tremendous do-it-yourselfer. So I started going back and, all right, in the history of the automobile, how does a do-it-yourself, what would that be? And originally I thought about, they used to sell those do-it-yourself cars out of the Sears catalog in like the 30s. The problem with that is they were all kind of crappy, boring, slow cars. So I didn't want that for you. So then I started thinking about, what about the guys that would take like a Duesenberg chassis and then get this awesome coachwork built around it? So that ended up being the path I went down, and I found a Stutz, which is made in Indianapolis. The famous Stutz Bearcats were awesome. So this amazing Stutz that I sent you that was custom bodywork by Lancefield, which is actually British. And what's really cool is this British coach builder, they made airplanes. They would put their airplane parts into these custom cars. And so it had some aircraft components like a gas turbine tailpipes, some aircraft bodywork, alloy seats, and harnesses. So if you've seen the picture, it's a wicked-looking ride. It's a 1930 Stutz, custom bodywork. It won all the concourse events and everything else. But it's a really cool car. So if I had all the money in the world, that's the car I would buy you as your company car.
Wow.
So, but don't hold your breath.
That's really classy. I don't even wash my cars.
What's also cool about that one, it has a supercharger that's activated by a lever on the dash, which that's kind of unusual. It feeds it into the drivetrain somehow. So cool car. You can get it dirty, running around town, going to the hot rod shows and everything. So
Mad Max before it was Mad Max. I like it a lot.
Right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking us on your journey today. What's the best way our listeners can learn more about you and your channels?
EricTheCarGuy.com. You'll find the latest and greatest there.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time today, Eric.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you for listening to Learn from Others, where we help others succeed by sharing success. Where will our next adventure take us? Subscribe to find out. If you know of someone who has a cool career story or occupation, contact Greg through Instagram at Greg Stanley LFO. That's GregStanley LFO. And we will see you soon as we learn from others together.